Okay.
You're not listening clearly. Because if you can't hear the critique of Wall Street, if you can't hear the critique of militarism, if you can't hear the critique of his foreign policy in Ukraine, and all you can hear when they talk about white supremacy's identity
Really?
politics, then something's wrong with your earplug, though, bro. Something's wrong with you. We just
Okay.
have deep disagreement with that,
Okay.
but
It's
it is what it is.
disappointing.
It is what it is.
It's disappointing to us because we see who you are now. That's what's disappointing, Jimmy. It's disappointing. He's like, it's disappointing. Now I can't even pretend to be a leftist after this debate. After this discussion, I have to go right into the warm, wet snatch of the right wing.
Yeah, this is a good first clip to start with. We have a couple others that we want to react to, but I think this one really sets the tone here. And oh my God, this is just so embarrassing. I genuinely can't imagine asking Cornel West the question that you're about to hear Jimmy Dore ask him. I mean, I really can't imagine as a white guy, to be honest, asking any black person this question. But oh my God, you can see the frustration in Cornel West's voice. And honestly, kudos to him for having the amount of patience that he had here, the amount of restraint, because I would have fucking gone off on this clown if I was Dr. West. And he kind of does, but oh my God, there's still a lot more restraint there than I would have been able to muster.
If you would have said, does Jimmy Dore have his head up his ass? I would be like, yeah, deep up his ass. That dude's had his head so far up his ass, he's about to come out of his own fucking mouth. Okay. Just like every other piece of fucking diarrhea that he spills for a living. Right. But today I was shocked. I was shocked this morning that he would sink to this low. And it really does give away the game, guys. This is exactly what he's doing. He is creating a angry white mob of disaffected people, and he's putting them towards whatever, angry issue that he can. Right. And honestly, man, it reminds me of like people I've talked to, like, who are like local Kansas City, like real black activists, or even discussions that people have online. And there's like a growing skepticism to organize with white people for black liberation and other issues, exactly because of the shit that you're about to witness from Jimmy Dore right now. And it's deserved, guys. And it's something that we have to talk about and we have to address, because if you hang out in activist circles long enough, you're going to see like that one white guy who's like really like gung-ho, let's just kill everybody, let's just destroy the cops. And then fucking instant it becomes viable. Yeah, they're on the side of the Green New Deal that leaves all the black people behind, 1940s style, right? It is so quick to betray and throw, the black working class and the black liberation efforts under the bus for whatever it is that, the white working class is after, and that creates such, bad division. And there are so many instances of it happening already throughout history. So for a guy that claims to be all like Fred Hampton and all this kind of shit like Jimmy Dore does, like, Jesus Christ, is absolutely pathetic. But yeah, there's not much more preamble we can give to this.
Don't you know, Zach? Fred Hampton never talked about race and never brought up white supremacy.
That's like the biggest fucking lie of all time, too. It's just completely untrue. And if you literally just go back and do like 1 second of homework, you can read essays and watch speeches given by Fred Hampton. And of course, he's talking about white supremacy. And of course, he understands. Like, here's the thing that the one last thing I'll say about this, and then I'll toss it back to you, Gavin, before we play the clip, is that, like, when you ask about whether or not you're concerned about white supremacy more or like class issues more, like, you don't understand it. Like, you should understand, if you're doing this for a living, that is the same thing, that the white supremacist capitalist system is all intertwined together. You cannot end white supremacy without ending capitalism, and you cannot end capitalism without ending white supremacy in this country. And that shouldn't be something that you have to explain to a 50-fucking-year-old, 60-year-old fucker that claims to care about this and loves to have his audience parrot the fact that he's like the second coming of Fred Hampton, which is the most vomit-inducing thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Oh yeah, 100%. Also, get a load out of the title of this interview. Jimmy interviewed Cornel live on his show last night, uploaded it just like an hour ago to YouTube with this fucking disgusting headline. Cornel West does 45-minute commercial for Joe Biden because he refused to admit at various points in the interview, or not admit, but he refused to concede to Jimmy Dore that Biden was a worse fascist than Donald Trump. Throughout this entire interview, Jimmy Dore keeps scolding Dr. West for refusing to say that Joe Biden is worse than Donald Trump's. He keeps saying, well, you're just legitimizing the lesser evil logic by saying that, Joe Biden is not as bad or as fascist as Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Jimmy Dore is unironically making the lesser evilism argument the entire time for Donald Trump. Cornel West is the one running against both of them. He's running against the Democrats and Republicans, and Jimmy's scolding him for saying that, you know, Joe Biden is the lesser evil. Meanwhile, this entire interview and for the last few months, Jimmy Dore hasn't been able to stop repeating himself a lesser evil argument. He's the one always saying Trump is clearly better than Biden. Clearly, Biden is a bigger fascist. So literally, Jimmy is making the lesser evilism argument, and he's projecting onto Cornel West this entire time. But yeah, just what a disgusting, disgraceful, and out of pocket way to frame this conversation, which, by the way, Jimmy Dore starts by saying, you know, I know I have some criticisms with you, and some people said I was coming down too hard on you when I did some reaction to your Anderson Cooper interview, but I just want you to know, Cornel West, I support you. I love you. I want you to succeed. This is all coming from a great place. I'm just trying to be your coach. All this bullshit at the beginning.
He doesn't
of the
want him
interview.
to be his coach. He doesn't need him to be his fucking coach. Why would you
Right.
want to coach like this? And I think that, honestly, I thought that Jimmy was going to, just do with this the way that he did the Ryan Grimm debate, right? Just only my most diehard sycophantic members can watch this. It will go into the annals of my, exclusive paywalled content, whatever. And then only my most like sycophantic people will have seen it, and then tell everybody I did a way better job than I did in my chat with the masses of people who don't actually go back and watch my old stuff once it's been taken down. But no, he's decided to lean into it. I think that this is we've seen, I don't want to call it the beginning of the end. I almost think this is the end of the end, right? Like this is finally the time where he does just become a right-wing channel where he does the full rave Dubin. And I got to give it to Gavin on this one. 2 years ago, I wasn't sure that he would ever outright say that he was a Trump supporter, but I think you were 100% right in calling that pitch a few years back, because he's all but done that already. And I think that if he's going to go to war with Cornel West, who, by the way, guys, he gave a massively softball, let's just say a hand job interview to RFKJ, the guy running within the Democratic Party, a system that Jimmy has insisted time and time again is completely broken, that he discredits anybody and doesn't take them seriously if they're even willing to run within the Democratic Party, except he'll make excuses if he likes you, like if your name's Tulsi Gabbard or RFKJ, because you've got some weird conspiracy theory that he's fucking into that, he'll never let go. And then he'll make excuses for your terrible healthcare policy and pretend that he's never supported anybody that wasn't 100% for Medicare for all, which of course he has. RFKJ too said to his face he doesn't even think that a fucking public option is a fucking viable option. And so I'm not going to propose that to the American people, a public option, if I don't think we can deliver it. And Jimmy's like, oh, okay, but don't you do support a public option if it was an option? Who knows? I'm not going to say anything about that. That was the level of pushback that he got. Anyway, this is all a bunch of preamble to set the stage for you guys. We have watched this. We have the receipts. In fact, I got a couple of good clips sent to us, Gavin, that we can play of Jimmy Dore himself roasting Donald Trump back in the day when he was on the ground for Rebel headquarters. And we can see exactly how much that Jimmy Dore has changed, because you guys, it's not us that changed. Jimmy Dore used to make based commentary. He'd make based content. When he was working at TYT, he was actually roasting the fuck out of Trump supporters in a vicious and hysterical way. We're going to play some of those clips for you guys.
Yep. And he wasn't afraid, by the way, to call them out for being racist. He wasn't afraid to call out right-wing media for being racist. He wasn't afraid to call out white supremacy. This is all like as of the last 3 years or so for Jimmy Dore, and it's been this gradual decline. And yeah, Zach, 100%. The point of this interview, the point of this whole arc with Jimmy and Cornel West is for Jimmy to pretend like, oh, because of the fact that Cornel West doesn't, care enough about vaccines, because of the fact that he's not on board with my pet issues to the extent that I want him to be, now that gives me an excuse to abandon any sort of support for him and basically just become a pro-Trump channel, which is 100% what's going to happen in the coming months. Jimmy Dore's audience is already like 80% made up of Trump supporters, and most of his content is already pretty obviously pro-Trump. But because of the fact that he's been pretending to be a freaking third-party supporter for so long, he has to pretend to, I want to support Cornel West, I really do, and I want him to succeed, but because of the fact that, he's saying all this stuff and he doesn't care enough about vaccines, I just can't. That's where this is going, because Jimmy Dore knows where the money is. He knows where his audience is at. And his audience is really not with Cornel West. His audience is a right-wing audience, and they're with Donald Trump. Some of them are with RFK Jr., but as soon as he's out of the way, they're going to be 100% full-blown Donald Trump supporters. Everyone in his channel, including Jimmy Dore. And that's what the point of this is. It's tearing down Cornel West so that he can get him out of the way and then move on to just completing the grift, becoming a full-blown Donald Trump channel. Even if he never explicitly says, I am going to vote for Donald Trump, you all know that's what the point of his show is going to be. Trump is being falsely criminalized, and they're going after him. It's a witch hunt because he tried to end the wars and stand up to the establishment. That's Jimmy's line, which obviously is full of shit, as you guys all know. But that's the point of this. It's about completing that transition and becoming a full-on right-wing channel, a full-on Trump-supporting channel, which is ironic because it makes Jimmy Dore the ultimate sheepdog for the duopoly. That's what it makes Jimmy Dore. That's what this fucking guy is. And of course, as always, so much projection, more projection than freaking imaginable. He calls everyone else a sheep herder, but that's what his ass is. That's what the point of his fucking show is. And you're about to see some of the most laughable, cringeworthy dog shit that I've ever seen from this man. So get ready and try not to vomit.
For your insight, absolutely right. No doubt about that.
So let me just say this. So the point of running a third-party campaign is to offer an alternative to the two major parties, to bring together disaffected members of those parties, along with independents and others who feel alienated from the political system as it exists. And the best way to do this is by running on economic issues that unite us, but which neither major party is willing to address because they're both beholden to the same powerful corporate interests. The Democrats.
Love how Jimmy kicks this off by just telling Cornel West why third parties are supposed to run and then declaring why Jimmy would run. Jimmy didn't run for fucking office because he knew he would be humiliated, right? He had the fucking People's Party fucking licking his balls trying to get him to do anything that they could, making all kinds of media. They wanted to be able to grift off of this dude running for president, but he knew he would be humiliated. He would be destroyed. He would be scrutinized by national media and get attention that he definitely does not want, right? There would be like legitimate investigative journalists trying to dig up any kind of dirt about this guy after they find out what kind of a crazy kook he is on his show, right? He didn't want that kind of smoke, right? He wasn't actually serious about any of this, but now he's going to begin this, a preface to his criticisms of Cornel West by instructing him, this man who is fucking an intellectual powerhouse and Jimmy is a dwarf, about why third-party candidates are supposed to run and why Cornel West is misguided in trying to tackle an issue such as Black liberation with his third-party effort. It's fucking insanity, and he hasn't even finished his stupid fucking question yet. I had to chime in.
Yeah, we're about to let it play, guys. Sorry, but you're totally right, Zach. And of course, you bring up the People's Party. How many people tried to warn Jimmy about the People's Party and tried to criticize the People's Party from a place of, a place of constructive criticism? People like us who are genuinely on board with the third party movement, but brought up genuine, legitimate criticisms of the People's Party and of Nick Brana from the very beginning, including to Jimmy Dore's face. What was his response? His response was, well, maybe there are some valid criticisms, but they're really the only third party that's actually making a run for it right now. They're really the only people, or some of the only people that are trying to do this. So it's not really productive to spend all your time criticizing them, to spend your time tearing them down. Really, the only productive thing to do is to support them. That was Jimmy Dore's message when it came to his friend Nick Brana and his friend's grift that was the People's Party, a sham of an organization which never ran a single candidate, let alone got anyone elected, and flushed hundreds of thousands of hard-earned donation money down the toilet in the process. Jimmy had no criticisms, nothing to say. But now, when it comes to Cornel West, who's actually running in a viable party with ballot access and who's actually giving this thing his freaking all Jimmy Dore has is criticisms. All he has is this desire to tear him down and, pretend like he needs to be scolded and given this advice from such a condescending place.
Democratic Party long ago abandoned the working class in favor of beating the drum on cultural issues. And now that's all the Democrats have to run on. So if voters are looking for a party running on trans rights and calling Donald Trump and his supporters white supremacists, they can already vote for Democrats. The role of a third party is to focus not on the identity politics that divide us, but on core economic issues that unite us along class lines, like Christian Smalls did at Staten Island. Do you think he led with LGBTQ trans rights and white supremacy, or do you think he organized along class lines?
Oh, don't like the tone of voice here, guys, at all. Don't like the tone of voice here at all.
That's what we have to do. You have to organize, meet people where they are. So what is your plan to organize along class lines, or are you going to keep talking about white supremacy and all those identity politics, which are there, not from the ground up, from the top down, to make sure we stay divided? What is your plan?
What? Tackling systemic racism in America, guys, is actually that's how they want us to divide. They want to divide. We actually need to stay racist. We never need to talk about it. We never need to address this fundamental flaw of our country, right? That's how we win, right? That's how we win. Are you fucking kidding?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, as a white person, I cannot imagine asking that to any black activist, let alone fucking Cornel West, who spent his life as an activist for black liberation. And now all of a sudden he's running for president. You're like, how about you drop that thing you've been talking about for literal freaking years, that you've made one of the projects of your career? Just drop that all of a sudden. Just exclude that from your analysis. Why don't you? What a fucking joke.
This dude graduated from Harvard magna cum laude at 20 years old, and then went on to have one of the most illustrious academic careers of any black liberation scholar of the 20th century, piercing both mainstream success and also the deep admiration of the activist community. This is, I mean, it's shameless.
And to organize along class lines.
Well, I appreciate again the clarity and candor of what you have to say. We have profound disagreements, brother. When I organize around white supremacy, I'm not making some utilitarian calculation. I'm speaking as a black man who comes out of a tradition that's been terrorized and traumatized by white elites. And that does not in any way mean it takes me away from class issues. Class issues are crucial. Class issues are fundamental. But it doesn't mean that I'm putting up with white supremacy. One of the problems is that you get too many folk who want to talk class, and can't say a mumbling word about white supremacy, police brutality. Can't say a mumbling word hardly.
Jimmy's
or when they do say it, you call it identity politics as if it's not connected to class. I'm hitting these head on. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to strikes. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to greedy bosses. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to obsession with profits and the needs not in any way being satisfied. But I'll never for a minute be silent or not raising my voice in terms of vicious treatment of black people, indigenous people, gay brothers, lesbian sisters, or trans. It's not.
How could you ever look at somebody like that and just say, you know what, you are fighting for the liberation of black people, trans people, all people, right? Why don't you set that aside for a second, right? This deep history that you're a part of. Right? Why don't you just forget all about that? Because I know a bunch of white folks that have other ideas. And let me just tell you exactly why this should be your priority, because that's what we're interested in over here. You could not be a better textbook example for why the left constantly falls apart when you do try and organize around fucking class reductionism, because then all of these fucking greedy ass motherfuckers will sell out every minority group, scapegoat them, and do exactly what Jimmy's trying to do right now. I don't care about trans kids. I'm going to make fun of them, right? I don't care about the black community. Like, that's not my priority right now. What I do care about is what my audience cares about, what's making me money. And now I'm going to lecture this very serious activist, this person that's dedicated their entire life to this. I mean, the audacity, you can't even really fathom it. And I don't even think he understands it. He's so in his own world. He's so up his own fucking ass. He doesn't understand that he's humiliating himself by being just a deranged embodiment of everything he once stood against.
100%. And by the way, shout out to you, Therese, for the $5. Imagine telling the author of Race Matters that maybe race doesn't matter that much. Laugh my ass off. What a clown. Yeah, that's such a great point, man. I mean, that's easily Dr. West's most famous text. Race matters. And here Jimmy's like, maybe it doesn't.
Even Joe fucking Rogan had Cornel West on and was like, man, I actually learned a lot from your book, Race Matters. I hadn't thought about a lot of that shit. It's like, if he can reach Joe Rogan, but Jimmy Dore is too fucking thick-skulled, and honestly, just it's not that he's too thick-skulled. It's that it's actually worse than that. It's more nefarious than that, right? It's that he's created a audience of deranged diehards, right? Sycophantic followers who, one, are largely white supremacists. They're people who have been, swept up and reached by Donald Trump largely, right? And he's playing the role of the guy who the left just went too far to the left for me. All they care about is fucking identity politics. It's a very similar pitch, guys, to what you get from fascists. Oh, yes, we need to do better jobs at taking care of our infrastructure, and we need to make sure that we have better hospitals and stuff that's good for you, right? But fuck all these other people, right? Well, this is about us. This is about the real Americans. That's where it fucking starts, guys. That's how fascism literally fucking starts. And that's why these people are attracted to Donald Trump and his new form of a right-wing populist fascism, right? And that's exactly what Cornel West is trying to stand up against. And it's exactly what Jimmy Dore is feeding into. And he actually has such a deranged audience. And like a lot of his sycophants, they're too far gone. They're way too far gone. You can literally show them an example of this and be like, look at how he's talking down to Cornel West. Look at how he's telling him he should abandon his fight against white supremacy. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind right now that you would say that?
Out of either or. And that's where you and I have a deep, profound disappointment. So if I see, for example, if I watch your show and I notice you hardly say a mumbling word about white supremacy because it's some kind of identity politics and I'm against it, but I don't want to talk about it. I only want to talk about what people hold in common. Well, black people are not going to hold it in common if you don't say a word about white supremacy, but maybe some of your white friends will. So who are you talking about when you're talking about in common? Are you talking about just a majority or what, my dear brother? I will never, ever in a million years not talk about vicious legacies of white supremacy, male supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, and others. But class will always be very much at the center. What brings you and I together is what? Our fundamental.
Jimmy Dore has such a shit-eating smirk on it. He can't even help it. He looks like a fucking kid that's being yelled at, and he's like fucking knows he's wrong, and he knows it, but he's like got this smirk so that he can fucking play it off today, like Cornel West doing a 45-minute commercial. Jimmy Dore knows exactly what the fuck he's doing, guys. That's what's so wrong about it, right? That's what's so fucking nefarious. He's playing his audience like a fiddle, and he's playing them to support a guy like Donald Trump when he could be playing them to support a guy like Cornel West, and that tells you everything you need to know about who he is as a person.
Solidarity with working classes, not just here but around the world. But oftentimes when I hear about your show and you say, well, you know, these identity politics issues get in the way. No, it's 100%. Not getting in the way. They're not getting in the way.
100%. They're used by so the Democrats, that's all they have to run on. And when you say that stuff, you just sound like a Democrat because that's all they have. So if
exactly
you
wrong.
need
if the talk about the dignity of black people in the face of vicious white supremacy makes me sound like a Democrat, you got the wrong earplug.
Burn. And also so true to talk about fucking the need to address radical white supremacy in this country. Like the Democrats aren't prepared to do that actually, right? So Jimmy Dore would never say, oh, Bernie Sanders, stop talking about healthcare, right? That just makes you sound like Obama. All Obama did was talk about healthcare and then he never gave it to anybody. Oh, don't talk about going after the bankers. All Obama did was talk about going after the bankers and then he never did. Oh, don't talk about fixing the housing cost in this country. Oh, all Obama did was talk about how the housing costs were too high in this country. And then he inflated them even more, right? Don't talk about any of that. Of course, he would never say that because that shit his audience actually cares about. What they don't care about is black liberation. And that's why he's scolding this man for actually standing up and actually, you know, challenging both party establishments and saying, neither of you are offering enough. And of course, he doesn't sound like a Democrat. What is Joe Biden saying that's even remotely similar to that? Joe Biden wrote the omnibus crime bill. Joe Biden supported busing or opposed busing. Excuse me. He called busing to schools creating racialized jungles. What are you talking about? He sounds like a Democrat. Get real. Get your head out of your fucking ass. You're just literally trying to make money off of white supremacists. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Plus, if there are Democrats that are talking about white supremacy and accurately identifying racism in society, then they're not incorrect to do so just because they're Democrats, right? And of course, when it comes to Republicans, Jimmy loves to give them credit. Change. Right. Yeah. But when it comes to Republicans, Jimmy Dore loves to give Republicans credit for being quote unquote right. How often does he love to bring up people like Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene to say, see, all the anti-war voices in DC are actually Republicans. But when you start talking about Ukraine and Russia, Jimmy, would someone say, well, now you sound like a Republican or now you sound like a Trumper? You reject that, or at least you pretend to. But when Dr. West talks about racism, you immediately say he sounds like a Democrat. as if racism isn't real just because every once in a while Democrats virtue signal about it or pretend to care about white supremacy, as if we can't talk about racism now. Same with climate change. Like you said, Zach, just because some Democrats pretend to care about climate change, that means we can't talk about it. And that makes us unserious, and just as unserious as the Democratic Party is. This is just obviously so dumb that it falls apart immediately as soon as you apply any sort of scrutiny to it whatsoever. And obviously Jimmy Dore knows what he's doing. He's dumb as fuck, but he's not this stupid. He knows what he's doing, and he knows he's trying to appease his audience. He's the most audience captured channel on YouTube, and he knows that everyone that watches his show is a right-wing Trump supporter. They don't want to hear about racism. They don't want to be confronted with the realities of white supremacy and what, the policies of the Republican Party leads to. And that's why he has to put on this dance and, do this incredibly disrespectful scolding of Cornel West, as if Cornel West needs to be lectured.
Okay.
You're not listening clearly, because if you can't hear the critique of Wall Street, if you can't hear the critique of militarism, if you can't hear the critique of his foreign policy in Ukraine, and all you can hear when they talk about white supremacy is identity politics, then something's wrong with your earplug, though, brother. Something's wrong with you. Okay. We can have deep disagreement with that, but
it's disappointing.
It is what it is.
It's disappointing to us because we see who you are now. That's what's disappointing, Jimmy. It's disappointing. He's like, it's disappointing. Now I can't even pretend to be a leftist after this debate. After this discussion, I have to go right into the warm, fucking wet snatch of the right wing.
You are profoundly disappointing in that sense, but I still love you, brother.
I still love you too. I still love you too. I know you. I know you. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm talking about.
Bro, I don't disagree with you. Just shut the fuck up about it. That's what Democrats say. That's what Democrats say, Jimmy. Do you know what happens all the time when you talk to people who are a little bit too in the party? I don't have a ton of experience with that, but I have some. And when you talk to them and they're like really in the trenches, they're in the weeds, they want to talk to you about the minutia. And then they say, oh, you just don't know what it's like to be in fucking politics because, you can't accomplish all of those goals. And yes, it would be so nice. Like, I agree. I totally would give everybody health insurance if I could, but I just know I can't. So I'm not going to support this guy that's always talking about that. Right. Trust me. I've heard endless lectures from people who are like, one of these days you're going to grow up, Zach, and you're going to realize that, yes, of course, everybody wants to like snap their fingers and end racism. And everybody wants to, have better policing and stuff like that. But you can't just go around talking about how you want to like fucking, defund the police or whatever. That's crazy. I agree with you that we spend too much money on policing, but you can't say that if you want to get elected in this, bro. Come on, bro. I agree with you, but let's stop talking about that right now. And let's start talking about the things that we can do, right? Like beat the Republicans. See how it's like a similar fucking playbook?
Oh, yeah. Jimmy Dore would never buy that excuse for any other policy, any policy that he actually agrees with or care about. If you said, oh, I can't talk about vaccines or I can't talk about Russia, Ukraine because it's too controversial. And, I just need to strategize perfectly in order to get the right people to vote for me. Jimmy Dore would never buy that. He would say that's just being a politician. That's just being a disingenuous snake and not talking about the issues that actually matter for your own political advantage. But here he totally flips the script. Again, when it's convenient for him and the issues that he actually cares about. By the way, spoiler alert, racism is not one of them.
Having a campaign. I'm not. So.
But the campaign is not about utilitarian calculation either. I don't look at black people like a utilitarian calculation. I can't say nothing because these people over here somehow are alienated. I'm telling the truth. I'm fighting for justice. And if people feel as if to talk about white supremacy is alienating, then they're going to be alienated. I'm talking about my mama. I'm talking about my daddy. This ain't no abstract dialogue about politics in the Machiavellian sense.
And that's exactly what Jimmy's setting up, despite the fact that he fucking shakes his head there and tries to gaslight Cornel.
So what Bernie caught.
We marched together for class politics. We marched together because that's real. But if you think that talking about white supremacy is just identity politics, we got deep disagreement. That's all. So I'm sorry to go on. And
no.
You're very kind to let me go.
No, go right ahead. No, go right ahead. I don't. And honest, everything I'm saying here coming from my heart. I want.
Jimmy digging his own grave right here. This comes from your heart, chastising this man about his support for fucking black liberation and the end of white supremacy, that comes from your heart. That's where your heart's at, dude. Oh, that might be the most disappointing thing that Jimmy said I've ever seen. That this comes from where his heart is. That's what he's thinking about, is that Cornel West is spending too much time talking about black issues and trans issues and not enough time being a class reductionist. Get fucked, Jimmy. Like, you have, if that's where your heart is, you got a lump of coal there, buddy. That's fucked up.
Yeah, and by the way, this is why Zach and I have made people like Jimmy Dore and his sycophants, channels like RBN and Dudes Dissident, such villains of our show. It's because they make our movement look so bad. It's because they pretend to be third-party supporters. They pretend to care about the third-party effort, but in reality, they're just dog whistling and pandering to fucking fascists. And they give the entire third-party movement this reputation of, oh, these people pretend to be radical leftists, but actually they just want to throw under the bus marginalized people and work with fascists instead. That's literally what reputation people like Jimmy Dore give this movement that I consider myself to be part of. And it's why I think it's so disgusting. I think it's why he needs to be defeated and exposed for what he is. He doesn't care about third parties. He doesn't care about leftism. He's a Trump supporter. And for the next, however many months until the election, you're going to see him start making a bunch of pro-Trump propaganda. 100%. Like I said, this interview was a way to get Dr. West out of the way for Jimmy, for him to disregard his candidacy and either go full Trump or full libertarian, depending on what Nazi the Libertarian Party nominates this year, or in 2024. That's where this is going. And I think this next clip is really going to prove it, in case it hasn't been proven already.
Oh, it's been proven, but we're about to double down, and then we're going to triple down. Guys, we will leave no area unchecked and uncovered. Guys, we are going to humiliate this man, I would say, for one last time, but he's going to make it so fucking fun for us over the coming weeks and years that we're just going to, we're going to follow him like a monkey on his back. He's all too familiar with that already.
What was the level of corruption that took place during these?
Oh, here, let me see if I can get better audio here. Let me start this over, guys. Sorry.
Exactly. What was the level of corruption that took place during these years? Be able to see not just the text, we know the books are out there, but they have a truth commission so that we can see what voices were marginalized, what voices were pushed aside, and make sure it never happens again. I resonate with the spirit of what my green, and as important as the issue of vaccines and the COVID situation was, when you say that's probably the most important issue in your lifetime or in the last 25 or 30 years, in light of all the wars, in light of what Palestinians are going through, in light of what workers are going through, 63% of them living paycheck to paycheck, in terms of all the vicious attacks of the police and the murders and so forth, and yet this vaccine issue is the most important thing. I say, okay, that's my dear brother Jimmy. He's got a right to raise his voice. I'm not going to in any way push it away, but I just live in a different world. As important as vaccines have been, if I had another chance, I'd be leaning much more with the Black caucus. But when I think of the weightiest issues, vaccines does not come immediately to mind. It just doesn't. That's the kind of world we live in, brother.
Okay.
Maybe I spend,
Well, here it is. Black business owners collapsed by 41%. Black business because of lockdowns. Do you care yet?
Well, no,
70,000 workers in one state were fired because of vaccine mandates. When are you going to care? Do they all have to be trans? When are you going to care about these workers? When are you going to care about? When are you going to care about this?
They have to be trans for me to care.
You don't care. You don't care. Why don't you care about this?
Why would you accuse me? Of course I care about it.
You're saying it's not important.
I didn't say it wasn't important. I said it was not the most fundamental issue in my lifetime the last 30 years.
Forced medical experiments? Forced medical experiments? The scheme?
Where's the nuance?
Oh my God.
Where's the complexity?
So you missed this story and you're not interested in getting it right.
Agree with Jimmy Dore.
So you missed this story and you're not interested. Well, Dr. West, I wish you the best. You know I love you. You know I support
you and your precious wife.
Okay, I wish you all the best. I love you. Thanks for coming on. I really do wish you all the best. And I just wish you had a clearer message.
Oh, gosh, with that with the last minute underhand. What are you talking about? Jimmy humiliating himself right now and giving away exactly who the fuck his audience is. He's giving it away. He doesn't care. Oh, he had to sneak in. Oh, do they have to be trans for you to care about them? That is the fucking verbal sewage that you get from somebody like Steven Crowder. Okay, that's the level of commentary that you're getting from Jimmy Dore right now. And the audacity. I can't think of a situation. Oh my God. Like anything, no matter and yet the hill you're dying on, is it's like, oh, this guy cares too much about white supremacy after all we've seen over every single year that America has been a country, but again, compounding over the last 5 years and the tremendous efforts that have been taken. The largest protest movement in the country's fucking history, all 50 states, coast to coast, Alaska and Hawaii held demonstrations for Black Lives Matter and the movement to defund the police. What are you talking about? That's not a popular issue. It is the most popular fucking issue. It is a unifier. My dad's been a Republican his whole life. He fucking hates the police. Why? Because he knows they're fucking scum that prey on poor people. Because if you're poor enough, the police will fuck with you anyway, right? That's what everybody knows. And that's why white supremacy, of course, they're mostly fucking with black people. Why? Because white supremacy, white supremacist capitalism intertwine like this, and it makes the fucking darkest skinned among us, yes, the fucking people of color, often the poorest. They're not the only poor people, right? Which is why Cornel West isn't running around here saying you only get fucking free healthcare if you're a black person. You only get fucking free college if you're of course not, right? But you have to understand, you have to recognize that this country was founded on the backs of chattel slavery, that we had Jim Crow up until like fucking 60 years ago, that people's houses, fucking predatory loans. Do you know how many black families that owned homes pre-2008 still own their fucking homes? A lot less. Why? Because of predatory lending practices, because of people who bought their fucking houses for pennies on the fucking dollar and then gentrified the shit out of those neighborhoods. Bro, go drive your car around fucking South Central right now and look at how much it costs to buy a fucking house. South Central Los Angeles. Guys, they used to make countless movies in the 90s about how, oh, fucking bad South Central. Now they built the world's most expensive fucking football stadium in Inglewood. Okay? This is how it's all connected. This is how it's all the same. And Jimmy wants to drive a wedge right in the middle. Why? Because his audience doesn't care about those minority people. They actually actively dislike them. They could get fucked. They just need to stay away from me. That's the kind of mentality he's breeding in his audience. It's the exact opposite of socialism. It's the exact opposite of solidarity. It is the exact opposite of everything he once claimed to stand for and everything that Dr. West continues to stand for. It's a fucking abomination, and he hides behind this stupid shit like vaccines, closing black businesses. Do you know why they close black businesses? Because the United States government subsidizes the shit out of wealthy businesses, venture capital, all those kinds of shit, and they gave PPP loans to a lot of those people and then forgave them, right? And they shafted black business. Why? Because of fucking white supremacist capitalism, the shit you don't give a fuck about, Jimmy. It's ridiculous. It's so dishonest and insincere. I could rant about this for fucking ever, but anyway.
Yeah, it's freaking unhinged, dude. This is crazy. And by the way, shout out to you, Susie Stone. Really appreciate the generous $20 super chat. Thank you for being one of the first to challenge Jimmy Dore's disgustingly disrespectful interview of Dr. West. I knew you would do a good job on that. Well, thank you so much, Susie Stone. Really appreciate the fact that you were able to tune in this afternoon and that you enjoyed our commentary. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know if we can take credit. Jimmy made it very easy for us this time. And again, I mean, it's just like we're so freaking vindicated with this shit, man. We're so freaking vindicated. We've been saying this shit for so long. We've been calling out this fucking asshole for so long, telling people he's a fake leftist, telling people he's the synthetic left, that he's the faux leftist that he pretends everyone else is, and that really he's going to sheep herd everyone into the duopoly by supporting Donald Trump and pandering to Trump supporters while he throws under the bus one of the most legendary living leftist activists and tries to minimize the issue of white supremacy and act like the fucking vaccine conversation is more important than racism. How's Ron DeSantis doing, by the way? Jimmy Dore, you want to give advice to a presidential campaign? You're telling Cornel West to make his message all about the vaccine, all about COVID. How's Ron DeSantis' campaign doing? Because that was his whole thing. Remember, he was the COVID guy. He was the, I didn't do any lockdowns and I stood up against the vaccine guy. And he thought that he was going to coast off of that to massive success in the Republican Party primary. How's that working out for Ron DeSantis, man? It's not working out very well because guess what? The COVID shit, it's irrelevant now. Not that it wasn't important, not that we can't talk about it, but it's not what Americans are voting on. So how dare you disguise your obsession with this stupid conspiracy theory as political advice for a presidential candidate who is trying to appeal to Americans, who is trying to build a coalition of not just fucking MSNBC Biden supporters, but of all Americans, including Trump supporters. And yes, including people that are probably skeptical of the, pharmaceutical establishment and of the vaccine. Cornel West wants those people's votes too, but don't act like it's good or sound political advice to tell him that instead of talking about racism, white supremacy, and other forms of oppression, that he should instead focus his entire campaign around an irrelevant issue that most Americans have entirely moved on from and don't even want to freaking talk about anymore. This is not good political advice. It's not like, Jimmy really just cares so much about racism, but he really thinks this is what's going to make Cornel West win. No, you can't even say that, because this is a losing issue. And Ron DeSantis's losing campaign is proof of that. To think it's going to work better on the left as a left-wing candidate by leaning into these issues, you're a fucking idiot.
100%.